Welcome back to Behind the People, H-TownStories. I'm your host, Nick Ramirez. I've been trying to get with her for like at least 6 months. We've been scheduled for several months. But welcome my friend, Miss Cinnamon Burton.
Hi.
So, we are now our first official week into COVID online teaching. What the heck?
Crazy.
How has this week been for you?
It's been exhausting. Like, I don't know if we can explain it any other way. Just exhausting. Like, mentally, not even physically. Like, it's mentally exhausting.
Well, let's talk about it because right now we're literally speaking for all the teachers that don't have a voice right now. So, like, I can tell you from my experience, and I've already told y'all guys now if you've listened to the episodes, which hopefully you have been. It's I am a first grade teacher, and Miss Burton here is I still say your name is Burton as if we're in the school building. I don't know what happens to teachers, but you don't call each other by your first name. Your first name doesn't exist. But teaching these little kids through the computer is almost impossible. I've had kids, parents mute them, tell them the answer, the kids will unmute themselves, and then they rock star know the answer.
Right. And I had a mom sit in front of the computer and do the girl's assignment the other day. Like, I could see the mom because she has to have help getting on Seesaw. And so mom comes and then I look, she's like, I'm done. And I'm like, but mom never moved from the chair. You just sat there and did that for her.
These kids are going to be they're going to be the most technologically advanced kids.
For sure.
But they're also going to be inadvertently the most behind kids we've had. Mm-hmm. And I can only see this because what is the statistic? What was that? The statistic that we've heard before, if they miss, there's a summer slide, right? The summer slide that ends up happening for your parents out there. And I'm not harping on any parents, but if you're not having your kids do anything during that summer, your kids end up sliding back. What does this say? They slide back at least a half a grade level or something like that. It's incredible how much a summer slide happens if the kid does absolutely nothing. And I get it. It's hard to make sure.
It is.
To make sure the kid is doing stuff and everything. But now we've had a summer slide for 6 months.
Yep.
It's what it feels like since March. And, for those of you doing math out there, you can find out from March to now just how much. Because let's be honest, it's been hard for a lot of the teachers to figure out the resources. We lost a lot of veteran teachers. We lost teachers that had 20 years of experience because they're like, you know what? I got enough time. I can retire. I don't have to deal with this crap. And we lose those experts. And now we're stuck with, not in a bad way, but we're stuck with a lot of new teachers that really don't even know what they're doing yet.
Right.
But they're being asked to be pushed above and beyond and go above and beyond on other things that they're not comfortable with either. Because I'll be honest, as someone that's, almost 30 and should be growing up with technology, very apt to how everything works on here, I was at a complete loss. It's just one of those things that's like, we're asking a lot from the kids. We're asking a lot from the parents. We're asking a lot from our admin team. We're asking a lot from the district. But here's the thing. They don't know the answers.
They really don't.
I mean,
and I'm sure that's terrible for them, like not to be able to give us any direction on what to do. Like that has to suck as an admin to not be able to tell us anything.
Yeah.
And I get that.
And the truth is that, they're telling us we can't even touch car doors. Cinnamon, we cannot touch car doors.
I don't really want to touch the car doors.
You don't either?
No, I don't. Like but I think it's made me, like, being in the house for so long has like made me scared. Like and I don't know why, because I've never been a germaphobe. Like, I'm definitely not. Okay. But being locked in the house for so long and people like, this is a serious thing, but I'm like, is it really that serious now? Like, so coming back to school has helped me a little bit. Like, my anxiety is a lot less now with the whole COVID thing, but I'm still like, I'm not touching your car door. Like, I can't do it.
But isn't it insane to think about? Okay, so here's my argument about the car door. If you're allowing kids to come inside the room, and you have second graders now, I have first graders. I have first grade kids that are putting fingers in their mouth.
I've been there. I know.
Yeah. And so if we can't touch a car door, but they're allowed to come into our classroom, even though we're cleaning,
you're right. I'm touching their device.
Yeah,
and they've touched everything in their house. Yeah, so I mean, I guess you're right.
You probably touched their backpack. They've come into the school. They've touched the door. Like I said, I've done this before. Like you touch the doorknob. You got to make sure they get to the restroom. How are you supposed to make connection? The hardest part I think I've had is making a connection that is non-physical. Like, and I think that sounds really weird.
No, but I get it though. But I think I have the same kids that I had last year, so I've already had that connection. So I
Yes.
haven't had to do that. So in that sense, it's been a lot easier for us as second grade teachers because we loop with our kids.
Yeah.
So we already knew them and we had that. So it's been, I guess, harder for us because I can't hug them now. I can't just be like, high five, good job, you got it. And that's how I'm that teacher. Like I hug you or I high five you or, you know. And so not to be able to do that has been the hardest thing.
Yes, that is the hardest thing to do. Not being able to high five the kids or, you know, fist pump the kids or something to let them know like, hey, I make a connection with you. Like you're part of the classroom. I'm because, you know, we spend 185 days with these kids, right? And
they become one of yours. Like they are my kid. Like they really are.
These kids are your kids and you are not allowed to. I mean, can you imagine your parents out there that are listening? You can't physically touch your kid because heaven forbid you give them some kind of sickness. And I get it. We don't know how these sickness is going to affect every different person. But, you know, we're going to have to somehow find a way to move past this and move past it in a way where not normalcy, because normalcy will probably come later, but in a way that we let the kids come back because it's such a dystopian look. With the kids wearing the face masks, the kids wearing the mask.
And being separated, and you can't touch each other, and you can't have groups, and you can't sit close to each other. And
here was my first instance when I realized that we are. This is something bigger than I think it is. We were doing a brain break. For the parents out there that don't know, or I'm pretty sure for the teachers, it's a Tony Chestnut one, and it was they had to they had to touch somebody else's knee, and they spin around in a circle. All my kids froze. And I don't know about y'all. Yes. I don't know about y'all, but I don't know if you've ever seen a group of 6 or 7-year-olds freeze inadvertently without you yelling at them because they didn't know if they could touch somebody else.
And that's sad. Like they need that physical touch.
They do. And they need
really
to be able to bond with each other. It's really depressing. And of course, this is us just venting. This is only going to get better from here, I would hope or assume, or we'll be back online and we'll let y'all know and I'll keep you updated on that.
Let's hope not. I don't like the online. It's not as personable.
It is.
Like I need them in my class.
Oh
I want them in my class.
What is the funniest thing you've seen online right now? Like when when you're doing your Zoom with your kids, or we're not allowed to use Zoom in our district right now because our district bought Google Meets and
it's terrible. It is awful.
Google Meets is, and right now at this moment on 9/10/2020, Google Meets is nowhere near what Zoom could do. And it is very unfortunate because our district has bought Google Meets. We are only allowed to use Google Meets. And it's kind of like you've been forced to use Android when you know Apple's out there. And even though I have an Android phone, like there's a sense of pain that comes with that.
Right.
So have you seen anything funny on Zoom?
I think it's just the parents who don't realize after they go to Seesaw that I can still see them. And so they're like all up in the camera. They got a bathrobe on. Or I did summer school. Okay. So I did summer school.
Oh my God.
I did. And they were having to get up at like 8 o'clock. These kids were like rolling out of bed. But there was one morning, actually several mornings, where he's still in bed, but the dad's also in bed. So the dad's laying in bed shirtless and the kid's like in front of the camera. I'm like, I don't want to see the dad shirtless in bed. Like that's just super awkward. And he's out there is like they don't care though. Like he saw me. Like I'm on Zoom. You can see me like move or cover up or something.
It's like, oh, is that my nip? That's my nip slip. I'm telling you, the other day I saw Bansa the other day. And if you don't know what that is, that's stomach. I saw straight beer gut walk behind my kids. Yeah. What am I supposed to do with that? I can't. I mean, and how many of the other kids seen it? And then
all of them.
Recently, I had a couple of kids talking, and there were some racial slurs that were said. It wasn't derogatory racial slurs, but it was racial slurs enough to where it made a parent feel uncomfortable. And guess what? I had to kick these kids out because they were goofing around and nobody was watching them. You know, how many of these kids are on Zoom with the parents because they got to work? I've talked to several parents saying, I got to go back to work and I got to send my kid face to face.
And the parents are struggling with that. Like I've had, like the parents are asking me, is it okay to send them? I'm like, you need to do whatever you're comfortable with. Of course, I want them here. I think it's better for them, and they've struggled with making that decision. Like face to face, do I keep them at home? Like what's going to be best for them?
Well, we need the kids here. We really do need the kids here. I don't know how that's going to look. Teaching through the computer is almost impossible. Because for our grade level specifically, if I think for kids that are 5th grade and older, they're probably like, you know, doing okay. I would assume they're doing okay for the most part. They should be able to operate everything. But for these little babies, I mean, we're teaching them place value stuff. We're teaching them hands-on stuff. And what am I supposed to get the kids online to do? And I'm not allowed to drop off a baggie. We've asked several times.
I know. But even at school, like, I struggle with that. Like, can they use these manipulatives? Do I have to clean them every time they use them?
Yeah.
Like, what does it look like? Like, how many kids can I have at my table? Can I put them in a group with a privacy folder? But then that's not personable either. And it's like, when do they get to communicate with each other? Because they're so separated.
Yes. And
you can't hear through the mask. So
recess. How depressing has recess been for you?
It's awful. And I'm like, we're playing Simon Says every day. Like, they've got to be tired. They've got to, or red light, green light. And I'm like,
oh, I didn't even think of red light, green light.
What?
Oh,
yeah, that's what we've been doing. But the first time we did it, they all ran at me and hugged me. And I'm like, you got to get off. You're going to get me in trouble. Like, you can't be touching me. You're all too close right now.
And
like,
you guys, think about you parents out there that have that bond with those elementary teachers that you had. And I still remember my kindergarten's teacher, Miss Curbo. That was such a crazy name. She was an older white lady. She had this super little perm going on. Man, she was the most kindest lady ever. And I remember hugging her all the time. And you need that when you're that age. And it's really hard to have that. And again, these are just some frustrations because we've, as teachers, seen the narrative. And again, we're giving those teachers that don't have a voice right now. We've seen the narrative go from "you're heroes, you deserve a raise" to "if you're complaining about your job, move out and get the heck out of here."
But who else is going to do this right now?
Exactly.
Like, I cannot imagine being a first-year teacher because I feel like a first-year teacher again, and this is my 6th year doing this. But it feels like my very first year. So I cannot imagine being a legit first-year teacher trying to navigate this. But then again, it might be easier because they don't know anything else. Like, this is all they know. So do you think it's easier?
True. I don't know. I'm a big believer in ignorance is bliss. I really am a big believer in that. When you start realizing how big the world is, when you start realizing the things that go on in the world, when you start realizing all of those other things that go into being just a person in this crazy world that's spinning through space, you start thinking about like all these different things. You start contemplating life, and then you realize, if I didn't know this, I could just be that guy I could be that guy that shows up every day at the bar. And it's like 3 p.m. Nick's going to be there. He's going to order that Shiner, and he's going to live his life like that. Like your ignorance sometimes is the best thing. Because once you start realizing what you don't know, like these new teachers coming in, they don't know. And they probably do know, right? Maybe if they did student teaching, but they didn't get those 6 years of experience, like you said, or those 7 years or whatever it is of building those relationships and learning how to handle that. And then having to shift everything in a matter of months. And then being expected, like I said, the outcry of like, just go change your job if you don't want to be there. Well, we built our life doing this, and
like,
we love it.
This is the only degree that I have, and I do love doing this. And so it's like, I can't really just stop what I'm doing. I have nothing to fall back on. Yeah.
And like, I guess I could go pack groceries.
But we're not going to make any money doing it. Like, I would not make it. Like, not that we make enough money as it is. So there's...
It's just been frustrating. But, again, like anything else, it eventually will get easier. We'll figure it out. And we'll do the best we can with our kids, but unfortunately, these kids are going to be behind. And how long will the ripple effect happen? Just like a pond, when you throw a rock into it, how far will the ripple effect go out? The good thing is that those parents that may have shifted their schedule to be home, maybe that was something that was good for them, because then it could be home for their kids. And I don't know, there could be a whole plethora of things that come out of this that have been beneficial. But right now, in this moment, we're really frustrated because this first week has not been fun.
It's just exhausting.
But, that's our rant for 17 minutes of talking about, roughly 17 minutes talking about our job. But, Cinnamon, your name. Where did you get your name from?
My mom met a girl at church camp when they were 13. Her name was Cinnamon, and she just said since then that her first child would be named Cinnamon, and I was the first one, so that's my name. My middle name's Lacey. It's a normal name, nothing special.
Well, I applaud her for making a commitment at that early in life. And
so it was 13, but she had me when she was 18, so it's only 5 years.
Oh my God.
So it wasn't that long.
She had you at 18?
My mom, she did.
Oh my gosh.
Yep.
So 5 years. Okay, 5 years is still a pretty good commitment for a 13-year-old.
But it probably happened so fast. Like, time goes by so fast once you start getting older. But she got pregnant with me in high school.
I mean, when I heard the name Cinnamon, I really pictured a different style girl, and I pictured somebody that was probably, let's be honest, a night walker, someone that's at the club, someone that's picking some dollar bills up off from somebody that's like, I don't want to go home to the wife. You know what I mean? That's got that 40-pack smell, 40-pack voice.
Not a teacher who's quiet and
and reserved. And you'll see throughout this podcast who talks as fast as an auctioneer. I swear to God.
You always make fun of me for that too.
I don't make fun of you.
I know,
You
but like you always call me out though. You're like, can you slow down? And I'm like, dude, it's just what I do. Like
you have a second career waiting for you. I'm just letting you know.
But I've always like talked fast, and people like my dad still to this day, he's like, I need you to slow down. And I'm like, Dad, I'm not talking that fast. Like I slow it down already for you. Like you just need to listen. Like.
So your mom had you at 18. What was that like? Like, so
remember,
your mom is like, well, obviously.
So my dad's, he was 25, so he was older. Mom's 18.
Where did they meet?
I really don't know. I guess I come from a very small town, so
Okay.
there's literally, I graduated with 111 kids, so our high school has 400 people.
Oh my God.
We only have one high school and one middle school, 3 elementary schools, so everyone knows everyone.
So he was probably like, what's your mom's name?
Carolyn.
Oh, he was probably sitting at the bar one day. Carolyn walked in. He's like,
we don't have a bar though.
There's no bar. There's no bar. It's a dry county.
We don't even have. Yeah, we don't even have a McDonald's. There's no Walmart. Our grocery store is like the IGA or the Dollar General store.
Where did they meet then? Was she like on the
high
side of the road?
Like I guess high school, and then she has an older sister.
Okay.
And so her sister's husband and my dad were kind of friends, and so just
they were probably at a family party or something like that.
Yeah.
And you were conceived in the back of a truck. No, I'm just
Let's not talk about it. No. Yeah. So.
You said you had no McDonald's, no nothing.
Subway. That was and we didn't even get that until I was.
Was there a Dairy Queen at least?
No, there's nothing. We had a Dairy Freeze. That's like a hamburger joint. That's a family-owned business.
Dairy Freeze.
Dairy Freeze.
Jesus Christ. What are they, like the knockoff of the knockoff?
No, they're actually really good.
Oh, I'm not saying they're bad. I'm just saying like
good.
the name though.
I don't know where it came from, but it's been there for years and years.
One stoplight.
One stoplight, and that didn't even come until later after I was older too. And the entire county. Like I said, 3 elementary schools, 1 middle school, and 1 high school.
So what was it like growing up in a small town?
Everyone knows everything about your business. Like there's no hiding anything. Like if something happens, you're calling, hey, did you hear this? Like what's going on? Like the nosiest. And like there's just a lot of drugs happening there. Like people are hooked on drugs, and so because there's nothing to do. There's no bowling alley, no roller skating rink, like nothing. Like you have to drive 30 minutes to get to a Walmart.
So when you have yard sales, you're like, hey, that's Cinnamon shirt.
Yeah.
No, it's not Cinnamon shirt. Hold on, let me see the tag. Oh, it says Cinnamon.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. So that's.
But I enjoyed it though, because like your friends, like you're super close with, and you just know everyone. And if something bad happens, or like if there's a family emergency, you can walk to your neighbor's house and they're going to help you out, or like you can call someone and they're going to be there no matter what. Like it's nice. But then when it comes to like everyone knowing your business, you don't want them to know. They're gonna know. Like there's no way to hide it. Like it's gonna get out. Yeah, so we all came together. So there was 3 elementary schools. We all came together in 6th grade. And so that's when like friends started changing too. Like because you add in new people, and so it's like the friends I were best friends with in elementary school completely changed, and I got a whole new group of friends. Like because I think that's like when the cliques started. So you have like the cool kids, the jocks, and I was not one of those cool kids.
I was not one of those cool kids. I don't know what you have to be able to be a cool kid, but I was the kid that could go from each group. I had friends.
That was me too. Like you didn't fit into one group. You kind of just floated around. Yes. That was me. Like
I could talk to the kids that were in the emo group.
Yes.
I could talk to the kids that were jocks, because I had 1 or 2 friends in classes that needed to borrow my homework. And then I was really big into the band geeks. I was one of those kids that I loved band. I played trombone. Obviously my trombone's sitting right there. I'm trying to get back into it. And
I was in band. I played the flute. Only for 3 years though, because basketball was more important to me, and you couldn't really do band and basketball both. So I definitely chose basketball.
I was total opposite. I had 2 band classes and an art class, and then I ended up going like whatever the art class. I wanted 2 band classes. I had jazz band and regular band, and that was my cliques. But I got to, like you said, going back, I got to fluctuate like between those groups, and that was so fun to be able to see. And maybe that's why I'm fascinated by people, being able to see what makes these people tick. It's so interesting to see. And like I said, everybody knew of me, but nobody really knew me, because I could fluctuate between those groups.
Just floated everywhere. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. So you grew up in that small town, and you stayed there all the way to high school.
Yep. And then my college was only 2 hours away, so it's not like I went that far. Like.
What college did you go to?
Murray State.
Murray State?
Mm-hmm.
What, Bill Murray make this? Like you know when you hear these colleges, you're like, that's a small, like, where do you hear these?
It really
obscure
wasn't like it
college?
had like 10,000 kids. Like even that, like it was small too. Like it wasn't.
Jesus.
Yeah,
So it was
it's
really
a lot
just a
bigger now
local.
though. But when I went, it was not that. I was only there for a year.
In
I had-
Kentucky.
Yeah, I had Michael that I was not even there. I was there 2 weekends the entire freshman year because I drove home every weekend so I could be with Michael.
No.
I did. It's like I kind of missed out on that whole college experience because like I just need to be with him. Like I did.
And now you're like, I'm with him for the rest of my life.
The rest of my life. The only 2 weekends I stayed were finals weekends, and I was like, I have to stay because I have to study. I'm not going home these 2 weekends. But that was it.
God.
Like,
were you a big crammer?
yes, I'm a procrastinator. I wait till the last minute to do everything. Like,
Most smart people are though, because you
I don't know
realize
if I'm smart, but I wait till the last minute to.
I think I'm gonna say arrogantly because I cram too. So I would say most people do cram though, because you know if you really, really, really want to do your due diligence on studying, you got to put in like 2 hours every day or 4 hours every day. They say statistically, like to be able to retain the information. But how do you do that? Like,
who has time?
Because some people, like a lot of times, I went to work. I worked at a mall for 5 to 9, only 4 hours a day, 25 hours a week, like 50 hours every 2 weeks, and man, I felt like there was no time because you go from school from like 8 to 3 sometimes, depending on where you're at, or if you make your own schedule. Like it's just crazy doing that. So, anyways, going back to like you missed out on that whole part of college. Like
I did. But
do
I'm
you
okay with
regret
it.
That?
I don't know that I regret it. Like it's clearly what I wanted to do. Like I don't know that I have regrets because like that's what I wanted at the moment.
Yeah.
And so like why regret that? Like,
wow, that's pretty powerful.
You know what I'm saying? Like that's what I wanted. That's what I did. So why do I need to regret that now?
Dang, we can just end this podcast here. I think that's our
like,
life
you
message
know, though?
right there.
Like does that make sense?
No,
though?
I think you're right. Like I think most people end up having life regrets because you realize you look back with your 2020 vision, right? You don't really realize that the choices that you made end up making who you are. Right, so you could have I could have gone back. I could have been partying. I could have done this. I could have done that. You could have got into all kinds of things, but you would have been a totally different person.
Totally different.
It could have shaped you totally different, and so it was worthwhile for you to do that. So that's impressive.
I mean, Michael and I are still together, and we're in Texas now. So
your parents. Let's talk about your dad. So what do you like? Where does your dad grow up?
He grew up in the same town. His dad actually passed away when he was 5 from a car accident. So his mom raised him and his sister, my aunt, all on her own. Like she never remarried. So she did that. And my mom actually, her dad passed away when she was like 3. He was a logger. And so there was a logging accident. So her mom also raised her and her 3 siblings by herself. So that she never remarried either.
Wow, that's a strong woman right there.
Both of them, right? Like I cannot imagine doing like raising Roman by myself. There is no way. And they did it with 2 kids and then 4 kids, like working full time, doing dinner. Like, dang, how do you do that?
Like as you grow up and you start realizing what adult, oh my God, what adult life looks like, and you start looking back at your parents, and you're like, how the hell did you handle this? Like being able to work, like, and it's different, right? Because those moms came from a different era where they didn't have to work. And then they had to go flying straight into the workforce, then come home, make all their meals, get them ready, get them taken care of, get them bathed, get them ready to go, parent them, make sure they're doing what they need to do.
Yeah.
All of that, man. Like shout out to those moms that are out there struggling. Shout out to their moms that are struggling silently and that don't have that voice and that feel like they're alone, because you're not alone. There's plenty of y'all out there that that can lean on each other, and that's an amount of strength that nobody is going to, nobody's going to truly understand unless they're in the middle of that.
Right. And I guess you just find it though. Like you never know where it comes from, that strength. Like it just happens. Like it has to be done, so you do it.
Yeah.
Like you can't make excuses. I mean, I guess you can. Parents do, but if you're a good parent, you're not going to make those excuses. You're going to do whatever it takes to make sure your child's happy.
That is true. And so your both parents have already experienced trauma from a very early age. That is incredible. And so your dad grew up in the same town, ends up meeting your mom at a high school party. They conceive you in the back of the truck.
Maybe.
But no, I'm just joking. I don't know. But so talk to me about your mom.
So my mom actually, she played softball, but she was obviously pregnant with me, so she had to quit softball. So she had to give that up already before I was even here. And you make a lot of sacrifices as a parent. So before I was ever here, she already made that sacrifice. So she graduated high school, had me in November.
And if you think about in your high school, did you meet a lot of people that had kids that young?
Yeah, it was a thing at my high school.
Really?
Yeah, there's nothing to do, so everyone's having sex, right? Like, there's nothing else to do.
There's nothing else to do.
There's nothing else to do, so people are hooking up. So, yeah, like, and especially now, like, my brother's still in high school, and there's kids all the time having kids.
And he's at the same area?
He's in the same, at the high school I went to. Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
So, it's a thing. Like,
probably does drugs, huh?
No, he's actually really smart. Like, he's taking college classes right now. Like, he's probably the smartest out of the four of us. He's definitely the smartest. But, yeah, so they had me. They got married. My mom was obviously pregnant when they got married. Moved in together.
You were at the wedding?
I was at the wedding. I actually was. And then 5 years later, my sister came along. My parents got a divorce. And things just kind of, I don't know, they went a little crazy after that. I don't remember much of my childhood, but I just kind of remember being the middle person for my parents, like, to communicate, because for whatever reason they couldn't get their crap together to communicate. Mm-hmm. And so I was always like, hey, ask your dad this, or tell your dad this, or there's just a bunch of bickering, and they just could not get, and they still don't really get along to this day. And I'm like,
you don't really think about that. Like, I never really thought about that. The parents that had a divorce, that they ended up putting one kid in the middle inadvertently, because they trust that kid, they're the responsible kid, and that forced you to grow up. It
definitely did, because I had to look out for my little sister too. Like, I had to make sure she was safe. And then, my brother came along, and then my other brother, and mom had multiple boyfriends that weren't the best, and so it's like, I had to make sure they were safe.
You've been a parent.
I've been a parent caretaker for as long as I can remember.
That's is there any animosity towards your parents for that you've ever had a chance to confront them, or anything that you've ever really thought about?
I never would, just because I don't like confrontation. So I'm just going to deal with it no matter what it does to me. Like, I'm not going to say anything to you. My mom and I have gotten in arguments for, like, I've legit thrown things at her and was wow. F you, like, shut the F up, like, what you're choosing. But she was, like, choosing her boyfriend over us again. It's not like it was the first time it had happened. And I was just like, I'm done with you.
All right, let's slow down. Let's slow down.
No, you don't want this shit?
No, I want that. But let's slow down. Let's work our way up to that. We want to walk to it like we're 5 years old. Like, we want to walk. I want you to walk us through that. So, after the divorce happens, who do you stay with?
Mom, obviously, but we move in with her mom because she doesn't really have anywhere to go. My dad keeps the house.
And your mom's 23 at this time.
Right. With two kids.
Jesus. And I know that's not the only. But, I mean, this is coming from somebody that's 29. I had to think about my age for a second. 29 and only has one son. But that's the norm for a lot of people. 23, you have two kids, and you're like, I guess my life will be put on pause for a second so I can figure this out. But your mom was like, oh, no, my life is still going. You better hold on to my babies, Mom, because I'll be right back. Go find another one.
And sometimes it was like that. Like, I feel like my mom missed out on, like, her early years. And so I guess she just felt like she missed out on, like, the partying and just going out. She didn't get to do that because she had us. But then it kind of happened because we would stay at home with my grandmother. Or when we were with my dad, and I'm with Dad, so it's okay if you go out and do whatever. But she just kind of, I don't know. I feel like she just never really took the time for us after a while. And at first it wasn't that bad. And I didn't realize it until after I moved out. And my dad was an over-the-road truck driver, so he was gone for 2 weeks at a time. And I think he tried, and I guess both my parents did, have tried their best or parented the best way they knew how. Yeah. But it wasn't necessarily the best way. Like, they could have done things in a different way and been a little bit better or a lot better.
But part of it is our 20/20 hindsight, right? We start thinking about what we would have done, what we would have been, and how we would have handled those situations. But like you just said, like, your parents handled it the best they could. Mm-hmm. Doesn't necessarily mean they really handled it the best they could. But from their point of view, they handled it the best they could have. And if that meant that she was gonna be like, hey Mom, watch these two kids. I gotta go hang out with Jim. Yeah. We're gonna go hang out at the Walmart down 6 miles away or 6 hours away.
6 hours away, yeah. It wasn't that far, but so I guess like I said, I don't really remember much though. Yeah. My dad, he tried a lot. I feel like he always bought us things. Like, I think that was his way of showing his love, was to buy us whatever we wanted, which was nice because, hey, I could ask for it. Okay, I'll get it for you. But that meant that he was throwing all of his money away on things that he didn't really need to. True. And so.
Well, I mean, he wasn't there he was on for 2 weeks, off for 2 weeks, on for 2 weeks.
he was gone. So
he only could only do what he had to do, which was throw money at it because he could only be there for 2 weeks.
And it wasn't even 2 weeks. It was the weekend though. Like he was gone for 2 weeks at a time. So like he was gone one whole week and then the other week and then he was home for like the 4 days that we were with him, and then he was gone again. So it was like, we had the
jumbled a lot.
We had the every other weekend schedule.
Yeah.
And then if he needed to be home for stuff, obviously he would be for like basketball games or, programs or whatever, he was home, but then he was gone again.
Dad, you watch my free throw? You see my free throw?
Pretty awesome, wasn't it?
Work on that arm. Work on that arm right there. Work on that release.
So he was there for that stuff, like the super important stuff. But other than that, he was gone. And up until like maybe 5 years ago, he was still over the road truck driving. Like he's done that like my entire life. And it was cool though because I don't know if am I going off here? Like I got to go on a trip with him one time for like 2 weeks.
Awesome.
Like so we started in Indiana and then went up to North Dakota and then over to California and then back down like through Texas and then back up to Indiana. It was cool. I got to go to a bunch of states, but truck driving, you obviously have deadlines you have to make. So I got to see a lot, but I didn't really get to like
experience
it. Yeah.
Did you get to at least experience of pushing the horn like every other kid in the shop?
When you pull it.
Yeah, when you pull it. Because I don't even know if that's a thing anymore
happy,
now.
Right? I don't know. Right? It's not. Is it? Like no one does it, and it's kind of sad.
Did you get to talk on the radio?
No, that thing was kind of creepy. Like people just say like they have that their lingo that they use, and I'm like,
God.
But I was only like 13 too, so I wasn't like I was pretty young. And then like sleeping in the truck, like in the bed, like we would take turns. Like one night I would sleep in bed, he'd sleep in the floor, and it's super uncomfortable, but. You can't really get a hotel room every night because it's super expensive.
So you were 13, you went on this trip. Was it a summer trip? Like you were
Yeah, it was during the summer.
So and then you had, you're obviously being hustled and bustled because he's got to meet these deadlines and all this stuff. But were there any memories from that trip?
The salt flats. Like we went to Utah and to see the salt flats, like that's the one thing that I remember. And I took back then disposable cameras. Like I ended up with
Shout out to the people that don't know what a disposable camera is.
People really don't, do they? Like I forget how old I am sometimes, but
we're not even that old. But the 90s was 30 years ago, and that's where we were born.
So right. I was born in the 80s actually, but
oh my God, you older than me?
I was born in 89, the end of 89 though, so it's okay. But
man,
so I probably
would say you're an 80s child.
Yeah, I guess I technically am, I guess, but But so I ended up with like 15 disposable cameras by the time we were done with this trip. Because I was just snapping pictures of everything, and I ended up like bringing salt back from the salt flats, and I have like this photo album now that I've kept, and so it's pretty cool to see all that.
That's cool. You ever relive those memories with your dad?
We do, but he's like a super emotional guy.
Oh,
like cries all the time. Like my dad is a crier, and my husband, Mike, like he makes fun of him. He's like, "Your dad's gonna cry." But like when Michael asked my dad to marry me, like my dad just lost it. Was like, "Shut the fuck up!" Like no, like was so upset. And my wedding day, my dad was drunk because he was so upset. And he loves Michael. Like Michael's not a bad guy, but I'm his baby girl.
Yeah.
And she's getting married, and my dad he'll tell you he was not drunk. The man was drunk because he was trying to deal with his emotions, so he didn't cry all day.
Well, that's a great story, just to be able to take that journey, especially. And how did that influence your perception of how big the world was back at that time? I mean, 13 and you got to travel all those states.
Like I went to a bunch of states, and it's just crazy. And like I would love to still like travel and go there and take Roman. Like it made my love for travel, I think, grow a little bit, and just to like get to experience that with my kids now, or even with my husband. Like I want to be able to do that. Yeah. Because there's so much to see. Like
there is. The world is so small. I always had this saying that like you don't realize how small your eye is when you're little. Mm-hmm. You have this perception of the world of it being like your neighborhood street. Like that's my world right there. Mm-hmm. And then you grow up and you go to school and you're like, all right, that's my other world. And then you realize how close the dang school is. I remember remembering how close my elementary was, and I was like, that's it. And it felt like it was worlds apart. And then you go to middle school, and then you go to high school, and your world and your view gets bigger. Mm-hmm. But it wasn't until college. When I went to University of Houston and I started meeting people that were Muslim, I started meeting people that were Asian, that were not just Asian particularly, Vietnamese, Pakistani, or any other race that I'm missing out there. Obviously, I'm missing a plethora. But when you start meeting these people from different races and different ethnic backgrounds and seeing the shades of people that we come in and the stories and traumas that we carry, like it is just amazing to see how much we don't know.
It is. And I come like my small town, they're pretty much all white. Like I come from a white town. And so even just moving here,
I will tell you, we like the one kid that we in our high school, it was the same thing. It was primarily Hispanic, and we had like five African American kids. We had like we obviously had white. That was a demographic that we had. But we had a few Asians, and you can name all of them on your hands. I don't know about y'all, but being in a 600 wide campus, 600 kids and this campus, and you're able to name that ethnic group, that's pretty insane. So we've talked before about your mom having some interesting stories with your mom. So if you could share those with you.
She's always had boyfriends. Like, I say now that I don't think my mom knows what true love is. Like, the love that I have for Michael, the love that you have for Marissa. Like, I don't think she's ever experienced that or knows what that is. Yeah. And so she just searches for it. And if someone says they love her, she loves them too. Like, so no matter if, like, this guy's good or not good, like, she loves them. And she's going to just drop everything and do whatever she needs to do to accommodate them and take care of them. Like, most of her boyfriends, like, they normally don't have jobs. And they just stay at the house and don't do anything. And she takes care of them. And I'm just like she doesn't want them to leave? She doesn't want them to leave. And she'll do whatever. And they'll be like, I'm going to leave. And she'll do whatever it takes. So you to make sure they stay.
Her dad was the one that died, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's got to be the huge trauma
right. And so
there.
she was, and her mom didn't have the best relationship because in my eyes, my grandmother was the best grandmother she could be. Yeah. And I know there's probably a story there, and they didn't always get along, but it's because the choices my mom made were not the best choices, and her mom would try to help her. Like, you would do anything to help her, but my mom was kind of like, I'm not going to listen to you. Like, you know, even when she was older, like, I'm not going to listen to my mom. She didn't know what she's talking about. My mom just never listened to her. Yeah. And so, her first husband, well, she's only been married twice, but so her first husband is the dad of my two brothers, and he was an alcoholic. And so there were issues there. And we have a much better relationship now.
So your dad and your mom weren't married?
Yeah. So this was her second marriage. I'm sorry. Okay, so she's only been married 2 times. So she was married to my dad and then married to my brother's dad. Yeah. And so he was okay when he, like, wasn't drinking, but he was a mean drunk. So he would get drunk and then become mean. And they weren't married for long. My mom got pregnant with my brother, and they got married while she was pregnant. And then my little brother came along. She's like, I'm going to do this again. Yeah,
I got a dress that fits. Mm-hmm. It already has the baby bump imprint on it.
Yeah, so she did that. They got married at my aunt's house. So it was just, like, super informal, like, not that planned.
I can't jump the broom. I'm just letting you know I'm pregnant.
So they were married for a while. They got a divorce. And Robert now, like, we have a pretty good relationship. Like, I can go to him. We talk. Like, I still see him whenever I go home. And it's a lot better now. But
does he still drink?
Yes. All the time.
Does he have the beer gut?
He does, and he's actually super skinny. Like, he's skinny, but he has a manual labor job, so he's, like, in the heat, like, sweating all day, and so he's up and going. But I also don't know that he eats because he drinks, and if he eats, you know, he's not going to get drunk, so.
He's one of those. Like, I'd rather have the alcohol.
But he's functioning, though, because he has a job, and he has a family and takes care of what he needs to do, but he still drinks all the time. So I guess he's like a functioning alcoholic, you could call him. I mean, I don't know.
I'm sure that, I think that's a new millennial term, yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah, because, I mean, he gets up every morning, goes to work, does what he needs to do, and then
comes home and six-packs waiting.
Yeah.
That's incredible. So is he still a mean alcoholic, you know?
I don't think so. Not that I know. Like, Cooper doesn't ever say anything, like, about him being mean. I think he's kind of grown up a little bit and realized that the choices he made when he was married to my mom kind of weren't the best choices, and so I think he's changed a little bit.
That's good.
Yeah.
So then...
boyfriends just keep coming.
They keep coming?
They really do, like, or just random, not random, but just, like, guys. She's like, okay, like, met this guy, gonna go meet him, like, would leave us at home. Like, to go.
How old are you?
At this point, like, I'm obviously older, but, like, maybe 15, but then I have a younger sister and 2 younger brothers.
So your mom at home, when mom decides, I need to go be with this guy.
Yeah, kind of. Or it would be like on the weekends when they were supposed to go. Like, she would force us to go to our dad's house. Like, not that we didn't want to go, but, like, if it was his weekend, like, no, you have to go. I have plans. I'm going to do it. You cannot stay here.
Wow.
Yeah. So.
That feeling of not wanted must have been strong in that house.
But I don't know that and I didn't realize, like, all this stuff it was my normal. So I didn't know
That's
that,
true.
You know, I didn't know any different. And, like, my friend's parents, they were divorced too. And so divorce was just a normal thing. And so
wait, your friends, like,
parents, like, most of my friends have divorced parents, like, they weren't still married. So
even in this small town?
Yes.
Oh my God. But you said, like, everybody knows everybody's business, so then they're like,
they do, and so you can't do anything, but then if you do something, they're gonna know, and so then it just but divorce is so boyfriends just keep coming, and she just always, like I was saying earlier, like, we were going camping one time, and I was actually out of high school. I guess Michael and I were already together, and we were going camping, but this boyfriend was throwing a fit, like he was being a baby, and didn't want to come. But she needed him there for whatever reason. So we had left, and he's like, I'll come later. Like, I'll just drive up and meet you guys. Well, he wasn't coming. She chooses to leave to drive home, and it's like an hour away. So it's not like she's missing out on this entire day. She comes back, and I'm just like...
She left... Wait.
She left us. Yeah, she left.
She drove y'all an hour and away from home.
And we were camping with friends, though. Yeah, we were like with family friends. So it wasn't just like
I was picturing you with like just a tent and
no,
we
were, and we used to go camping. Like camping is something I remember. We would go camping every summer. Like we're talking tent camping, not RV camping. Like tent. We did have a fan with electricity and air mattresses, but camping is something that I really enjoyed doing, and we did that every summer.
Oh, that's fascinating.
So that was kind of like a family memory that I have with them. But at this point, she was like, "No, he needs to be here," and I'm like, you cannot leave us. Like, we're here to spend time with you. Like, why does he matter? Like, who is he? Like, he's no one. Like, oh my God. So she leaves and she comes back. And I don't remember what started the argument. I just remember, actually, I don't remember. Michael's had to fill me in. Like, I'm like, shut the F up. Like, F you. And I picked up something and just launched it at her.
Wow.
But I apparently blacked out because I don't remember doing this. Michael had to tell me, like, he had to calm me down. Like, I am this pissed at her. Because it's like, why is he more important than me? Like, what did we do so wrong?
Yeah.
That you don't love us enough to stay here and enjoy this time with us.
I could see how you took it that way, but unfortunately, something in her felt like she needed to have that companion with her, whatever it is.
She thinks or thought that he loved her, but I'm telling you, she does not know what
love is.
Love that the kind of love that we feel with our spouses, she doesn't know that love, and I don't even know that she feels the love, and she might that I feel for Roman. I don't feel like she feels that for us, like because if you do, like I don't know how you do the things she's done. Like, could you ever imagine doing this to Sebastian, though? Like, you
leaving him like that?
You would never in a million years, or even like choosing like if anything, you know what I'm saying? Like choosing someone else over him, like another girlfriend. Like you would just never. Like I don't know how you do that.
I don't know either. Like, and that's a crazy thing that she decided to do that, especially driving an hour and a half away.
Yeah.
Did you ever play softball? Because I wonder if you got an arm. Like
I did play softball.
Oh my God! I could just see you winding.
I did. Yeah, I did.
And Michael's like, wait! You got that fastball curve. Hold on, man. She's trying to dodge, and you got the curve going into her.
I'm just so mad. It's just frustrating. And I think my frustration grew after I had Roman because I know how much I love him.
Yeah.
And the fact that I would never do this, and I still don't talk to my mom. Like I tried one time, like 'cause I was like, I need to try for myself because. Yes. I want to know why she doesn't want to have a relationship with me, or maybe it's just she doesn't know how to have one with me now because there has been so much hurt, Mm-hmm. And so I started this thing where I would text her once a week and say, hey, how are you doing? And she would reply sometimes, but it's like, I can't keep being the one to like initiate this response. Like you have to give me something back, and it never came. She would reply to my messages, but she would never be the first one to say, hey, how are you doing? And so I couldn't keep putting myself out there because it was only hurting me. It clearly does not hurt her. I'm assuming it doesn't, or I feel like she would do something about. Would she not though? Like if it's hurting you, like do something about it.
I agree. I had with the situation with my parents, I had the same issue, and it was one of those things where I had to sit down. I had a phone call my mom, and be like, why don't you ask about my son? Like you could send me. So you asked her that? Yes, I asked her, and she was like, well, I don't know if I can. I'm telling you, you can, and this was months ago. And like, you don't call and you don't ask about Sebastian. Well, I don't know if I can. I don't know if you're going to allow me to see him.
But ask though.
You can ask. Because you know where I live, you know that stuff. It's a two-way street. Like you said, I keep putting myself out there. But at first, like I said before, I didn't want to talk to anybody when this initially happened. And it was mainly because I didn't know what I wanted to do. I needed to reflect on my feelings first to be able to understand where I was going to come. Because if I just reacted, it wouldn't be great. So I wanted to make sure I knew exactly where I was coming from and be able to have the words to be able to handle the situation properly. But once the situation, I think we got to a point where we could, it seems that it's a perpetual state of being mad at me and finding a way to be disappointed in me. And that's okay. At this point now, I've made my peace with it. Like you said, like I've asked and I've already said, look, if you want to talk or you want to call me and ask about my son, do it. If you don't want to call and talk to me or ask about me or ask about my wife, that's fine. But this is your grandson, and he's almost a year now, and you haven't seen him.
But do you not have the fear that, because my fear is that Roman's going to be hurt by her the way that I've been hurt by her, and I want to make sure that he does never have to feel the hurt that I felt from her.
I will tell you honestly, I have no qualms about that. I think I know that I'm not Sebastian, so she's going to probably take better care of him than I will.
And
than she would of me.
Right, that special love that you have for your grandkid, right? It's something different apparently. But
well, it's not even that. It's just like we've already gone through something. We already have pain with each other. We already have heartache with each other. This is a new life. Like to even put in words the feeling of seeing my son being born and understanding like what it is. Like I kid you not. I think it was like 3 weeks after he was born, I got a text from my sister that says, "You've been a parent for this many hours," and it was like an accurate amount of hours I've been a parent. And it is an absurd thing to be able to get a message from your sibling saying you've been a parent for 96 hours and now you know how it feels. So how could you ever put your mom through this and blah, 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 blah. This is the nonsense that I got. Instead of being like, hey, you should probably talk to mom, like this, I got this talking down of like, this is what you should be doing because you now have been a parent for 90 something
like,
hours.
It's always your fault. It's never her fault. Like, I don't know if my mom, like whenever my mom talks to her friends, I'm pretty sure it's always our fault. Like she does everything right. Yes. Like she doesn't do anything wrong. It's always us, but they don't know my side of the story. They only get her side of the story. So before you start acting like I'm the bad person, why don't you ask me like what happened?
If you truly cared.
Right. And so I get that.
Yeah, and it's one of those things that it's either going to get better or it won't, and I think I've made a peace with it. Like I said, I don't get a text from her, I don't get a call from her, and it's fine. And I probably should call her too, like I said. There's but
at what point do you like? Because your feelings, you know what I'm saying? Like you can only put yourself out there so many times before it's just like I can't do this anymore.
I think that's one of my faults. Though. It's a big fault in me. I give people too many chances.
I do too.
And luckily I have my wife that lets me know like, hey, you've done 100 times now. I think it's time for you to stop and see if you get some, if they reciprocate that same thing.
But then it's like, it sucks when they don't, because it's like, why don't you? Like, what did I do so wrong that you can't, you can't, ask how I'm doing?
That we can't make it past something like this, like you said, for somebody to drag your name out to everybody that you thought was a friend or you thought, was a cousin or relative. And, I'm getting messages from a cousin that's like, you should just make up with her. And I'm like, but I tried. And I was like, you know what? But instead of me explaining this whole situation, I'm like, you know what? Just thank you. And that's all I could say. Well, I actually just sent K, which is like the worst message you can send.
It's like F you.
Like if anybody sends you K, it's the biggest F you you've ever gotten. And if you don't realize that, then probably you've gotten a lot of Ks before.
For sure.
But so, I mean, your mom had she had that trauma initially when she grew up, and
then
it
just
sounded like she was searching for it the whole rest of her life.
Having a kid at 18, like she pretty much had to put her life on hold. Like I couldn't imagine having a kid at 18. Like she gave up softball. Like she just never got to experience life before she got pregnant. And so I guess maybe that's what she was trying to do, and it just was not the best time to do it. Like wait till we're grown. But then she chose to have 3 more kids, and so then it just kind of. And my brother's in high school still. Like he turned 16 in December. So I mean. There's 15 years between us. Like,
man. And you're still mom. You're still going to be mom if you go back. It's hard to have a relationship like that. Like my older sister's 9 years ahead of me. And I grew up with her being a second mom. And then my middle sister had the mom personality. So she would always do that. So I got like 3 moms telling me something to do every day. Yeah. And I probably needed it. I don't know how it was as a kid, right? And your whole perception of yourself is warped at times. But like you said, when is it when you finally put your foot down? When is enough? And at what point do you start respecting yourself enough to be able to give yourself the opportunity to say, you know what, I'm not going to put up with this anymore. Yep. And it feels bad. If you have a heart and a conscience, it feels like you're being an asshole.
And I think that's my problem. Like I have like the biggest heart, and my conscience is just I always feel guilty for everything. Like I really do.
I think of the same thing. I don't understand. Like I don't want to be that guy. Like I had somebody tell me something I don't even know if somebody told me or if I heard it. I listen to too many podcasts. Shout out if you're listening to these podcasts though. But I listened to somebody tell me, when they talk about you, do you want to be like, when you hear about yourself, do you picture yourself being that guy? Do you picture yourself being that guy that doesn't talk to his family? I never in a million years thought that. I never really did.
My family kind of fell apart too after my grandmother died, because she was the place where we always met, and so they don't get together anymore. And obviously I'm not there, but they just don't get together anymore. And it's sad, because I grew up with those cousins, and going to my grandmother's house to spend the night, and we would have sleepovers all the time and get in so much trouble, but they don't get together anymore, and it makes me sad. When I come home, they get together, and it's so we can all see each other. So it's like if I don't go home, they're not getting together anymore, and I'm like, why?
And it's one of those things that it will get fixed eventually one day, hopefully. As I'm talking here, I'll be able to happily tell you that it's gotten fixed and it's gotten better. But whatever life has to come for me, I'm prepared for it. So as we're getting further on, let's talk about the loss of your grandparent or your grandmother.
So she's been just a sickly person my whole life. Like, I would legit go and spend nights with her in the hospital because I didn't want her to stay by herself. Like, even so much, like, I was in high school and I missed my finals so I could be at the hospital with her. Like, I was like, I'm not coming to school because I didn't want her to stay by herself. Like, she, you know, she had thyroid cancer, she was diabetic, she had like flesh-eating bacteria. Like, we're talking just a very sickly person. So, and she was pretty sick when we moved. Like, not like dying sick, but sick. She actually came to my wedding and like had to stay in. I got married on Halloween and it was super cold. So she had been.
What? You got married on Halloween?
I got married on Halloween. I did.
Oh my gosh! Did you have a Halloween theme at least?
The reception was Halloween themed. My like ceremony was very like formal, like normal, but like we dressed up. Like,
y'all dressed up? What was your costume?
I was definitely the bride, and my dress. I spent too much money on my dress.
Now I sound silly for even asking that question.
But ask me what Michael was. You want to know what he was?
What was Michael?
Thor. Like, Thor, like the superhero Thor.
Oh my god!
Like with the wig and everything. He had a hammer. Roman actually still plays with the hammer. Like, had the hammer and everything. It was fun. So she came, and I was actually the only wedding that she got to attend. Like, she didn't get to go to any other of my sister's wedding.
That one sentence broke my heart already.
And there's like this one picture of her. She had to stay inside because she was sick, like hooked up to oxygen, but she wanted to be there, and so she was sitting inside, and like I've got goosebumps. But just that picture of her, like. It's one of my favorite pictures of her. But so I get a phone call. The house that Michael and I were renting when we moved here, like my aunt called and was like, and I knew she had been sick, but I didn't know it was like this bad. And they're like, you need to come home, she's dying. And I'm like,
home to Kentucky,
yeah.
Oh,
like
Jesus Christ.
You need to come home, like she's not gonna make it much longer. And
this is not, I can't imagine that feeling. You are hours away,
and like I was kind of the caretaker, and then I would help take care of her. Once I left, that I don't guess it was a burden, but that responsibility fell on my sister. So my sister was the one who was having to do a lot of stuff for her because she lived closest, and I feel bad for her having to do that, and I wasn't there to help her with that, and so I have that guilt too, that she had to take that on by herself and do all of that. Man. And so I get the phone call, and for me, like, I need to be at the funeral to physically see that person in the casket. Like, that's like the final for me. Like, really? It's my first year teaching too, right? Yeah. So I only have 10 days, and you know how crazy the first year teaching is. Yeah. I moved to a state that's completely different. So than where I come from. We're talking like I come from 2-lane roads. There's like 12-lane roads here, right? Like 6 lanes on both sides. So it's not only am I going through like a life change. Now my grandmother, who was like super important to me, is dying, and I'm like, I can't come home yet. So then my aunt gets upset with me, but I can't process it. Like, and it was during one of the testing things that we had to do. So it was important that I'm at school, so there's not a sub in my classroom. And so it's like the job was super important. Then it's like you always put that, like, teachers, I feel like, put their jobs first until I had a kid, and then now that I have a kid, like, you can wait now, but like then that was my sole responsibility, and I needed to be there. And I'm like, what do you do first year? And so then she calls my mother-in-law, and Bonnie calls me, and she's like, you need to go home. I'm like, but there's this testing and this and this and this, and I only have this many days. Oh, but my uncle had passed away. My grandmother passed away in October, in February. My uncle had passed away in October. Oh my! So I had to go home. This has been a very fun first year for you. First year, right? And moved here, and I wasn't so sure, because I was that person. I'm never leaving home. Like, I'm gonna live in Kentucky in this small town for my entire life. Like, never.
You knew like 10 people basically.
Yeah, never would have imagined that I would be living in Texas right now. Like, I don't know how this. Like, and still sometimes I'm like, this is crazy. Like, is this really my life? But so I'd already taken off days because he had passed away. Tragically, like, he had a blood clot. He had gotten in an ATV accident, and because he was young, and then had a blood clot, and it like went to his lung or something, and he died actually in my grandmother's kitchen. Like, died
like he just was talking and hanging out there, and just that was it.
Yeah. So I already had to go home for that.
I know that's scary, but that sounds like the best way to go. Unfortunately,
that death. And so now my grandmother, and she's like, you have to come home, and I'm like, I don't have time. Like, I can't do it. And I'm like, how long do I need to be off? Like, I've still got to do sub plans. Like.
So then you're contemplating about these days. You're not sure if you can go. You're talking to your aunt, and what's the words that get you to go?
I think Bonnie called, and she was like, and Michael was kind of like, you need to go. Like, you're going to regret not going. I went, but then I felt like the angel of death, because she was literally like, so, and the closest airport is 2 hours away. So I fly 2 hours to Nashville. No. Yeah, so it's in Nashville. So I have to fly from Hobby to Nashville and then still drive 2 hours home. My sister was supposed to pick me up, but she wanted to stay at the hospital because the entire family's at the hospital at this point. Yeah. And so my cousin picked me up, 2-hour drive home. And I remember, like, I stopped to say hi to the family, and my cousin Tara had walked into the room, and my grandmother thought it was going to be me. And so, like, she was kind of disappointed that it wasn't me yet, and she's, like, asking for me. So I literally felt like the angel of death, because, like, after I got there, we talked, had our last conversation. Like she just kind of started deteriorating faster. Like it was just like, she's like, okay,
She was
like
waiting for you.
So angel of death, right? Because it's like, if I
It's
hadn't,
not an angel
but
of
that's
death.
how I feel. And I think just because
I would say it's a kiss of death. Like, because she needed you.
Right. And she waited. She did.
Waited. Like, I don't know, man. Like, that's the
But
amount of
it's still
strength
hard,
it takes to wait for you, though. Like, I'm
but
getting
even
teary-eyed
having
thinking about that.
To go home to that, like to go home to watch your grandmother die when I'm already super stressed from like just moving, because I feel guilty for moving away too. Like, I left my entire family. Like, Michael's family is my family, but it's not your family. Right. And so
yeah, I'm sure everybody understands that.
Leaving my sister with that responsibility to help take care of her and doing it, like, I feel so guilty for that. Like, she shouldn't have had to do that. Not that it's really my responsibility either, but that's just what I did with her,
I wonder if you feel selfish because you actually got to live your life for a moment.
Maybe.
I mean, really think about it.
Because I was here doing what I wanted to do, and you're right. I guess I thought about that. You're right. And she didn't get to do that part, and she had to do more than I had to do. Yeah. Maybe you're right.
But I mean, you really got to live your moment, and you took a chance. You took a chance of, like, you know what? If I get away, I can actually get to do what I want for once, instead of, because if you would have stayed there, who knows? You could have been working in hospice right now. You could have been doing something that could have changed your whole shape of your life. Like, what is one of the last meaningful conversations with her?
We just kind of talked about, just like growing up and her telling me, take care of yourself, like just go live your life, do what you need to do. And then she was on like a ventilator thing, and so she couldn't talk that great. And then she told us, she goes, I'm ready to go. Like, she chose, and so at that point they turned it off, and like we're having conversations, and I remember her saying, so her son had died, right? Yeah. And so she's sitting there, and she was like, he's waiting for me. I can see him. Like, he's got his arms open, and he's waiting for me. She goes, I'm happy. Right? And so it's like, and I guess it's like nice knowing that she's not in pain anymore. Like, she's free now. And so, but it was hard. And then we obviously did the funeral, and...
But you said you had to see her in the funeral casket.
I do. Like, that's like...
Because I could tell you, that's one of the biggest anxieties of going to a funeral. Like,
it's not, but it's like, it's final for me. Like, it reiterates that they are dead and they're not coming back. Like, I will never get to see them again. Where did that
fascination come from?
Maybe, I don't know, because I've honestly had a lot of death in my life. Like, my great-grandmother died when I was in elementary school, and she actually lived with us. And so my mom took care of her because she had Alzheimer's, and so she took care of us. So she actually died in my house. Like, but they made me leave. I guess I thought I was too young, so I went to my stepdad's parents' house, and then I remember them coming to tell me, she passed away last night. And then my uncle, my grandmother's brother, he was actually shot by his stepson because he was there watching him because he was crazy and his mom was in the hospital, and so his stepdad actually shot him, and so he died. And I remember like my granny come in to tell my dad, and I was asleep, but I overheard them, and so like he died as well. And then
oh my goodness,
there's just been like a lot of death, I guess, like, and not just like distant relatives, like people that I talk to on a regular basis. Like, it's not like it was like, your long lost cousin. Like, it was people I was close with.
Wow.
And so I think it's just kind of,
it's a definitive fact for you.
Yeah. And then honestly,
see them.
And in high school, like, we had a boy I was supposed to graduate with died in a tragic car accident. And then literally I can't remember the exact date, but like weeks, maybe 2 months later, another girl died.
Oh my God.
Like, and we're talking, there's only 400 kids in my high school. So that's pretty tragic.
We're down to 390 guys. That's what the principal meeting was
though.
like.
And so, yeah, there's just been like a lot of death. And so I guess just seeing them in the casket is just like the final goodbye. Like,
no,
I don't know. Maybe that's weird, but
no, I don't think so. I think that's something
that's something I need. And that's what I needed whenever I was like, because I didn't want to take off too many days from school because then it's just more work. And so that's
it's so sad that that's our first thought.
And it always is. It really is. Yeah. But it's like, that's what I told, and my aunt got really upset with me. And I realized now I shouldn't have been worried about school, but it was my first year, and you're trying to make a good impression your first year too. And so, and I'd already been out because my uncle had passed away. And so it's like, but I need to see them in the casket. And
I didn't know you had so much death in your life.
Well, then there's my aunt too, which is I don't know if you want to go there, but that's like, I think even more tragic than my grandmother.
Well, we can't tease the audience, so let's go there.
So this
if you're okay with it.
No, I'm okay with it. Might take me a minute because I might cry, but
I'll cry right there with you. I got napkins.
So I didn't have the greatest relations
tissues.
with moms.
I don't want to use napkins. I'm gonna scratch your face.
Tissues. So this aunt was like a mom to me, right? Like, she was like the special aunt. Like, we're talking come home for like homecoming basketball game, senior night, like did everything with me.
Was she the one that replaced your mom in a way?
She definitely was. She was like my mom, but they couldn't have kids. And so,
oh man.
So my sister and I became their kids. Like we were like their first priority. They would do anything for us. Like anything we needed, they would get for us. And so I actually didn't even go wedding dress shopping with my mom. I went with my aunt and my sister. Like I didn't want to have that experience with my mom. I wanted that with my aunt. And so prom dress shopping did that. Like she's just always.
Even wedding, you said, right?
Yeah, like my mom. So the mom's normally the one to zip the daughter up in the dress. No, my aunt did that. Like Aunt Stacy was the one who did that for me. And I made sure to tell the photographer, don't ask for my mom. The aunt's doing this. Like, because that would be an awkward conversation then. But my aunt Stacy was definitely like another mother figure. Because I had great my other aunt, like my mom's sister, like she's great as well. 2 great grandmothers. So I've had
those
really
figures
good.
there.
Yeah, those figures there.
But isn't it crazy how you end up finding them in life? Like
you do.
You end up finding what you don't have, and your family doesn't have. It sounds horrible to say that, but sometimes your family isn't your blood. It ends up being the people that inadvertently become your family through the way life has through the way that life has given it to you. So I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you with that.
No, it's good. So when I got pregnant, like, and we struggled to get pregnant and she struggled to get pregnant. So she knew what I was feeling when we couldn't get pregnant. She's like, I completely understand. Like, I know what you're going through. But we got pregnant. She was so excited. But to back up a little bit, she had ovarian cancer when I was in college. And so and it was like stage 4, like really late. And normally you don't recover from that. But luckily she did. But she had to do the chemo and the radiation, and it really messed her up, like with all the pain meds she had to take after to control the pain and everything. Like she was just not in the greatest health, like, and it just really changed her personality too. But I mean, to go through something like that, like it's gonna change anyone.
Yeah.
So we were still close, but then I get pregnant, and she's super excited, never flown before. She's like, my first flight's gonna be down to see you whenever you have him, and da-da-da-da. And I'm like, yes, can't wait. And my family still this day is like, I wish you'd just move back home. And I'm like, I would love
that
to
is
move back.
the worst thing.
And they don't mean it, but they don't mean it in a bad way. And now it's even more so because I have Roman and they want to see him, but it makes me feel even more guilty. But it's like, it's best for us here. Like, we would not have and honestly, I don't even know that we would have Roman if we were at home, because I would have to drive 2 hours to probably get really good, like, infertility care to even have a kid. But hindsight to that is we wouldn't be able to afford it either, because we wouldn't make the money that we make here. Yeah. So I wouldn't be able to afford it. So we get pregnant. Super excited. And I remember a few days before, and she would check on me all the time, right? Like, I'm telling her, these are my symptoms, this is what's happening, send her baby bump pictures, everything. Super excited. Like, I don't even send these things to my mom. Like, this is like just what we do. And I remember we had maternity pictures done, and I sent her pictures a few days before she died. Like, I had a sneak peek. It wasn't even all of them. It was a sneak peek that our photographer had sent us. And it was a Friday morning. Like, I play by play. Like, this is like one of the most vivid things. My uncle had actually tried. Michael, I guess, was on evenings then, and so he was at home. So my uncle was like trying to call Michael to tell him first before they tell me, because I'm 37 weeks pregnant. 37 weeks pregnant, right? So they're trying to like tell me in the calmest way, so I'm not like overreacting, like hyperventilating, because I've got a baby to care about too, And so Michael's phone's on silent, so no one knows anything's going on. I come to school normal. We're in family meeting in the gym, and I don't know why I heard the phone ring, and it's loud in there, right? But I hear the phone ring. I see Ilsa go over, pick up the phone, and I'm like, sometimes you just have a feeling,
you know? Well, that's that woman's intuition too, man.
Right, and then I see Ilsa walk to Susan, and I'm like, something's going on. Like, you don't, like, what's happening? And like I said, there was just that feeling. And then she walks over to me, and I'm like, Ilsa comes to get me, and she's like, I need you to walk with me to your room. And I'm like, is everything okay? She goes, yeah, it's fine. And I'm like, you're not going to ask me to walk out and everything's okay. Right? So I go with her, and we make it into the school, and I was like, you have to tell me she's like, Michael and Bonnie and Becky, like, she didn't know, but like my aunt was on the way. She's like, they're going to come. I'm like, no, you have to, because at this point I'm hyperventilating. Like, what's going on? Right. And I'm pregnant. And so it's like, I can't hyperventilate because then he's not going to have enough air. And so there's just so many factors. And she's like, it's something about your aunt. And I'm like, what aunt? Like, I've got more than one aunt. And she's like, do you have any aunts that are sick? I'm like, none of my aunts are sick. I said, my aunt had ovarian cancer years ago, but like, as far as I know, she's fine. Like, I just talked to her 3 days ago. And so I'm crying by the time that Michael and Bonnie and Aunt Becky walk in.
They still haven't told you?
I still don't know, and they're all just and so
God.
they walk in and see me crying.
They teased you this whole time, so now you're perpetually just worried.
Yes, and so I'm like, they're hugging me, and I'm like, can you tell me what happened? Like, what happened? They're like,
we're down to 389 now.
right? So let's just knock another one off. I'm like, and they're like, your Aunt Stacy passed away, and I remember just they had to catch me like. Collapsed, like I couldn't stand up, and my first words were, well, I get to go home. And at that point we were that Friday we were starting weekly visits, so because I had reached 37 weeks, right? So weekly visits, and they're like, we don't know. And I said, I have to go home. I cannot not go home for this funeral. Like, there is no possible way I can do this. And so I leave school. Like, none of my team knows what's going on, because at this point I can't communicate anything because I am so distraught. Like, she ended up having a heart attack. Like, my uncle found her on the couch that morning when he got up for work. And they really did try to tell me, like, before I made it to work, so it wasn't this big of a deal, but clearly didn't happen. So I go home for the rest of the day, and I'm just like, I had a doctor's appointment at 3:30. They're like, just ask the doctor what they think. And I'm like, I don't really care what they say. I'm going home. Like, I have to. And Michael was in agreement with me. I mean, it's kind of, I can't fly 37 weeks pregnant, but it's a 12-hour drive home without being pregnant and having to pee every hour. And so, because you know.
Yeah, I'm like calculating the math over here. I'm like, Jesus Christ.
Go to the doctor, and my eyes are all puffy because I've been crying all day and whatnot. And she's like, do you have any questions? And I was like, or concerns? I said, I need to go home. And she's like, I said, to Kentucky home. And she's like, I said, my aunt passed away. And I was like, I'm going. And she was like, okay. I'm like, I just need you to tell me that it's going to be okay. But even if you don't tell me, I'm still going. And she's like,
you had an appointment that day to go?
Yeah, at 3:30. Like,
so did you make it through the day? Like, did you go teach? Did you go?
Oh no, I went home.
Okay.
Like, I could not stay. Like, I was done. Like, I could not collect my thoughts. I couldn't do anything. And I was like, I'm leaving. What was
the first thing you did when you got home?
I don't know if I just sat on the couch. Like, I couldn't do anything. I'm still in, like, shock. Like, what do you mean she's gone? Like, just talk to her. Like, she's supposed to meet my kid. Like,
Jesus
right?
Christ.
Because we've had this special relationship, and she was excited for me, and she was going to come down and see him. So the first time she's flying, and that was the person I wanted to share that with, because she's like a mom, and I don't have that relationship with my mom. And so that was like my person that I was going to share that with. And she's gone. So she's like, you can go home, but you can't fly. You're going to have to drive. And I'm like, okay, well, we kind of figured that. So, and we had like packed that day, because whether or not she told me I could go, I was going. So we go home.
I had to get on a magic carpet. We're going.
We were going. We drove to Texarkana, though, because we obviously didn't leave until like 5 o'clock because I had a doctor's appointment. Drove to Texarkana halfway, and then I get home. And then once again, my sister's having to do all this by herself, because my gran, like, is in shock. She's lost a kid. My uncle is just kind of like, they're obviously helping, but she's the one who's having to do all this stuff again that she shouldn't have to do, that I feel guilty that I'm not there to do, because I feel like I should be there to help her do that. And so there's that guilt with that too, my poor sister. But we go home, and everyone's like super concerned about me. They're like, are you going to go in labor? And I'm like, we're good. Like, let's just make it through this. But it was the most stressful, like play by play. I remember, and like, even just family meetings are still kind of like a trigger, like, and I think just because it's like so traumatic, and like even that room sometimes, because I've been told so many bad things in that classroom.
Really?
Like, I found out my sister called me to tell me I was at school, and she told me my uncle had died. So like in that classroom, and then it's just like all this other stuff, and so, and I ended up going. So I come home, went back to teaching like nothing had happened, and so then my next appointment, 38 weeks. I'm like, so I come back to school I think on a Tuesday. We drove home Monday, like 15 hours to get home. I was at work at 7:30 Tuesday morning. I couldn't miss any more days. I'm like saving my days for maternity leave, right? Because I need that money, so I have to be back at work. And so teach the rest of the week.
I hope that someone that hears this understands the struggle it is, or what it is for someone to be pregnant, because I didn't understand what it was for someone to be pregnant. If you got sick, you burned your days. If you got it, like, it just doesn't make sense on the amount of scrutiny that a woman has to go through in order to have a child.
It's exhausting. Like, when you're that pregnant, like, you're just tired all the time. You just want to sit and do nothing. But I'm still teaching. Just lost my aunt, like, just emotionally and mentally drained. And so I went to my checkup on that Friday, and I ended up like going to the hospital to have him, because they're like, you're 5 centimeters dilated. I want you to know I left my class. I don't even have sub plans at this point. We didn't have a car seat in the car. We didn't have anything because we were supposed to do that weekend that we had to go home. That was going to be our weekend to do that. That didn't happen.
Oh
so
my gosh.
I go to the doctor and she's like, "You're going to have a baby." I'm like, "No, I cannot have a baby. Have you seen my classroom at school? I left everything scattered. There is nothing ready for a baby. I don't have a car seat. I don't have a diaper bag." She goes, "You have time to get all that stuff." And I'm like, "But my classroom." I'm like, "Michael, like, what am I going to do?" She's like, "You're going to walk over to the hospital and you're going to have this baby." I did not want to have Roman on December 7th because it was a week from the passing of my aunt. And I'm like, I can't. Like, I was not prepared to have a baby because I wasn't emotionally ready. It's like, I couldn't deal with all of that.
Yeah.
And so luckily I didn't. He was born at 12:54 on December 8th, but it's still, and even like his first birthday, I was excited, but I was also dealing with the anniversary of my aunt's death. And so it was like, and I'm going to do that every year.
Yeah,
like a week before his birthday
it's
is the anniversary of her death. And it's like, I couldn't deal with that. And I still can't. It's hard, but it's like, because she's missing out on everything. And it makes me super sad because she was so excited. But I think once I can start sharing those stories with him and just telling him how great, hey, this grandmother, she was fantastic. Look at all these memories we made together. And I can kind of take some of those memories I made with her and incorporate them with Roman and, like, just tell him all the great stories because they were really great people and played a huge role in my life. Yeah. So I'm excited for that, but it also sucks that the two of the most important people in my life did not get to meet my child.
Yeah.
And that's hard.
Let's take a break right now. Record. All right. So we are back from our mini break. So we're going to wrap this up pretty soon. So I wanted you to talk and share your story with how you got your son. And then it sounds weird. Like it sounds like you picked him up from somebody.
The thing you have to do to have a kid, right?
The stork came in.
Yeah. Dropped him off.
So what did you have? What was the process of going to have your son?
So I've never had like regular cycles. And so I've always kind of known there was going to be some issues with like, I've always assumed that I had PCOS. And I never went to the doctor to find out because I didn't want to know because there's always that fear of I want to have kids and I want to be a mom, but what if I can't? Michael and I started to try to have kids and it's just not working. And I'm like, okay, well, obviously need a fertility doctor. So we go find out I do have PCOS and we have to go through this whole process. And I wanted 2 kids by 30. Like I wanted to be done having kids at 30.
You had a plan.
I had a plan, 2 kids by 30, right? And that plan didn't happen. And so I ended up having to have surgery to have my fallopian tubes cleared out because there was like some tissue in there.
Wow.
So that happened in December of 2016, I guess.
I would never have to think that you would have, like any woman would have to go through a process like that.
It's a lot. And it's like during this whole process of trying to have a kid, everyone around you is literally getting pregnant. And no lie, and it's not, and you're pissed off, and you're
like,
we
just had sex for the first time, and I'm positive.
Really though, it's like that, and it's like you get so frustrated because it's like it's so easy for you. Like, why can it just not happen for us? And so you're excited for that person, but then deep down, like you're really upset because it's what you want, and you can't have it. And I remember actually when we were going through this whole process, my sister-in-law, they already had 1 kid. And then she got pregnant. And it was during the time that we were going through fertility stuff. And she announced it. We had went home for Christmas. And so on the Christmas card they had a picture of their kid. And it said, "For Christmas, I want." And then had a list. And beside it was a check to become a big brother.
Aww.
And my mother-in-law is super excited because this is my husband's brother and his wife. And I remember, like, I saw it before my mother-in-law did. And I didn't know how to react, like, because I'm trying to have a kid and I can't right now. Like, I'm having to do all these extra steps to do it. Like, just having sex does not work for us. Like, it's not that easy. And I remember going downstairs and crying and feeling bad for crying because I should be excited for her. Yeah. And I was excited for her. But the hindsight of that is I'm upset because I want this so bad and it's not happening.
I can't get it.
Yeah.
God does. It feels like a choice that God's making for you.
Right.
And it feels like a punishment inadvertently.
It's all His plan, and I know that. But to follow His plan is really complicated sometimes because it's like I want it now. Just give it to me. Like now, why can't it be on my time? Totally His timing. Yeah. I get it. So there's 2 options that we had to choose from. We didn't have to do IVF, which I'm very fortunate for because super expensive, right? Not that what we did was that cheap. It was expensive, but. So we chose to do, so we could either do intercourse route or IUI. IUI was like $500 more expensive than just having intercourse. And so we chose that route first. But that still entailed me having to do shots every night, me having to go into the doctor for them to make sure my eggs are growing, and then finding the perfect time.
Sounds like you're an alien.
Yeah, and there's this calendar, and on this calendar, it literally says intercourse. Like, your sex is planned for you. You have to have sex.
Well, I don't think you're the first couple that's had planned sex.
But when you have to do it, and when you're spending all
there's someone out there that's like, it's Tuesday.
But we're spending all this money, and it's like to get there, right? And because it was $1,500 up front.
Oh my God.
But I had already paid like $2,000 to have my surgery that I had to have, and then my medicine that I have to take is like $300 a bottle for this little tube of stuff I have to inject, and then there's like.
And how long does it last? Like a week?
No, we're talking like a couple weeks. Like at the end of this, to get Roman, like we ended up spending $10,000.
$10,000
between the surgeries and all the medicine and doctor's visits and just everything. Yeah.
Wow.
$10,000.
That is insane to be able to have a child. For some, like you said, for some women out there that have this, would you say POC?
PCOS.
PCOS. It's not like I'm gonna know that term,
right.
right?
But it's different because some women with PCOS have no problems getting pregnant. They just have different symptoms of that. It just kind of depends on your case. And I was just a case of can't get pregnant.
Wow.
So we do that, and then so when you see on the calendar, you have to have sex. I don't want to have sex. Like it just there's nothing intimate about that.
Yeah.
Like it's planned, and it's just not.
It doesn't feel spontaneous.
It's not, and so
it
it's
loses that essence of what it is to be a couple.
And so we do it, whatever, and then we have to go in. You have to wait 2 weeks, and then you go in one morning, and you take a pregnancy test. They call you later to tell you yes, you're pregnant, or no, you're not. And I took off school that morning, like the day that I was supposed to go in. I went in that morning, and I took half a day because I didn't want to be at school and get the phone call, And I got it, and they're like, it's negative. So it's like just so defeating. It's like I just spent all this money. We did all this stuff, and I still can't get pregnant. And so then I'm questioning, do I really want kids? Like, is this something I want to do again? Do I want to continue with this heartbreak? Like, I know people have it a lot worse than we have it, but it's like, do I still want to do this? So
when you start contemplating your whole life now, like your whole image of what you believe your life was going to be, right? I was supposed to have 2 kids by 30. I'm now 45. No, I'm just joking. But you're not. Your whole world is shaped around like what you are going to perceive it to be. And once that image starts to shatter or even break just a minute, you start to get so disheartened in what it is. And so I'm glad that you stuck with it.
And Michael's like having to work all these extra jobs too to pay, because I'm a teacher, he's a police officer. We're not rolling in money, right? And so he's working all these extra jobs, so I feel guilty for that because he's not at home, but he's doing it to have a family for us. And so that happens. So then we go back. Then you have to wait for me to have another cycle, and so it's like a whole other month, right? But we choose to do IUI this time because he's like, I think this will work. I'm like, okay, but then it's the process of that's even more expensive than it was last time, and then I have to do all this medicine again. And we actually went in on April 1st, which was Easter and April Fool's. And so Michael had to go in that morning to do his whole thing in the cup, so they could get his sperm. And then we went back home, and then we had to come back, and they get an A team and a B team with the sperm. And then it's kind of like being, I guess, when you do like the turkey basting with the turkey or whatever,
Oh my God.
No, for real though, because you listen, you can cut this out if you want.
No.
But legit, so like they tell you there's an A team and a B team, and like they give you this ultrasound picture, and like on the picture it says good luck sperm. And so you're laying there, and they put this tube in you and insert the A team closer to your fallopian tube so it has a better chance of getting there, and then pull it out, and the B team gets released. And so then I have to lay there for 10 minutes with my pelvis in the air to make sure everything goes where it needs to go. And so that's just kind of
he was with you, obviously, right?
Yeah, he was there for all that.
Oh my God, was he rooting on the side like a cheerleader? Go B team.
Listen,
go
it was like 7 o'clock in the morning, and he is not a morning person, so he was like pissed off that we had to be there this early anyhow. And we had already been in there at like 5:30 for him to do his part, and I'm sure it's awkward for him to have to get this cut from this lady and then go into a room and like. It's like, but I'm like, dude, if I'm doing what I'm doing, you can do this one thing. Like, it's not that big of a deal.
Just a side note, just seeing my wife going through what she had to go through with pregnancy and what the doctors are just casually talking to me. And then they're just, using their hand to check for things. And you're like, hi, doc. And he's just having a conversation, and his hand's like in my wife.
Yeah. And at first
I don't know how to put that delicately, but all you dads out there know exactly what I'm talking about.
And it's awkward, and I never wanted a male doctor because I'm like, I don't want another male, that's just awkward. But now it's just kind of like like you kind of lose just like
you lose a piece of your
you do
humanity.
your dignity. It's just like, well, now everyone's seen everything, and so it's like it's just kind of awkward too. But
it is something. It's a trial that moms have to go through that you start to appreciate of what it is. Like you said, coming back full circle of like what it is to be a parent, the things that you have to go through, and just your whole shape of your innocence and your humanity and your decency and your dignity of what they go through in order to have a kid.
It's so selfless. Like you have to be the most selfless person to have a kid. Like you give up everything. Like you gosh. Just right?
Yes, you
like,
do.
You do. So back to the story. We have to wait 2 weeks to get the phone call, but we went in to get, I guess, inseminated on April Fool's and Easter, April 1st. Like I remember that. And so you have to wait. Like, and those are the longest 2 weeks of your life, like waiting for that phone call. But then I think that morning of going in is just like, it's terrible because then you go in, you pee in the cup, they do the pregnancy test, and they call you back later. And I remember getting that phone call, and like she just kind of starts out like she's not like, "Hey, how are you?" Like not very chipper, and I'm like, "We're not pregnant again." And Michael was actually home with me this time. He wasn't home with me the first time I got the phone call, and I just kind of look at him. I'm like, "We're not pregnant again." Then she's like, "You're pregnant," and I'm like, "Right? Like, we're what? We're pregnant?" And I'm like, "Oh my gosh, is this for real?" And so, like, and our his family here is like went through this whole process with us, and we ended up having a party that night to tell them we were pregnant.
Oh wow!
Because Michael's cousin ended up getting pregnant, and they struggled to get pregnant too, but they still got pregnant naturally, and so she kind of felt guilty about that too. Like she was like, and we had their gender reveal party shortly after we found out I was pregnant, and I had told them, I was like, if I'm not pregnant, I don't know that I can come to this party, and not because I'm not excited for her, but because it's gonna be too hard.
It's hard,
right? And so we have Roman. I'm so thankful for him. Like being a mom is the biggest blessing ever. And
is it everything you thought you could have done? Because I can tell you that, you know, when I looked at my wife, I just knew there was something about my wife that I knew that she would be the best mom.
Mm-hmm.
And I've said this since the beginning, and I think you've heard me say this, that I was excited to see her change into the mom that she would always become.
Right.
And it has been the biggest blessing to be able to be a part of that change and just witness it from her side of view and seeing what she's doing and how everything has happened. And it is just the most beautiful thing I think any man could ever see their wife do.
And then just getting to experience that with the person that you love too, like to grow that bond with that child and experience that with them. And I think like with you, like Michael, I always knew he'd be a good dad, but if you knew Michael, like he's an asshole. Like I tell him all the time, like he really is. He's just an asshole. Like that's just his.
That's probably almost 95% of the guys.
That's just his personality. Like, and if you don't know how to take him, like you're gonna think he's a dick because he's gonna tell you what he thinks, and he doesn't really care if it hurts your feelings or not. Like he's really straightforward. And so
I probably would really get along with him.
And I tell him that all the time. I'm like, you and Nick would be like really good friends because you're a lot alike. Like I really do. And so, but watching him become a dad and just how gentle and calm he is with him, like it's just. And Roman likes him more than he likes me. He's a daddy's boy for sure, and it makes me so mad sometimes. I'm like, I just spent the last 6 months with you,
I
kid.
spent 20 grand on you. I can't wait till you say that to him when he's 16 and throwing a fit. You wouldn't be here right now.
Right? You know, we had to pay for you before you were here. You're expensive before I ever had you. Yeah. But no, he's a daddy's boy through and through, and it's been great. But we're trying to start to have a kid again. Okay?
Yeah.
Right? And so we're like trying it because people always say after you have the first one, you just get pregnant. It's super easy, right? Like you're going to have to do the fertility stuff again. Like it's just going to happen. And I'm like, but I also feel like people shouldn't ask people when they're going to have kids because like in my situation, like I'm going to tell you like,
well, nobody knows that,
and
right?
they don't. And so it's like, you don't ask that question. Like you should not ask. Now that I went through that, like I just don't feel like asking people. But it's like if they're struggling and you don't know, it just opens up a whole nother bottle of emotions. And so we go to try to have another kid. It's not happening. And I wanted to plan this kid, right, to get pregnant in like August so I could be off like the last.
29 and a half.
No, I'll be 31. I'm already 30. So it's not happening. I done ruined that plan. But trying to plan this kid around school so I can miss like the last part of May and then be home with him the whole summer, right?
Oh my God, I didn't even think about it.
Right? So that's my plan. But I don't know why I'm trying to plan stuff because God's gonna plan it for me anyhow. It doesn't really matter. But
But if I pray real hard.
We're not right. Can you just answer this one time? Can you give me what I want one time?
Don't send me the voicemail. If you send me the voicemail one more time.
Yeah. So we've been trying and it's like it's not happening. And we're like, well, I guess it's not gonna happen for us. So we go see our fertility doctor again, Dr. Crochet. Love him. He's the best. Turns out this time it's Michael. He has really low testosterone, and so he gets injections like pellets.
Yeah.
And it just like boosts his energy and just he's in a better mood because his testosterone is so low. But the testosterone causes his sperm count to be 0.
What?
So this whole time we're trying, there's not even a chance I'm going to get pregnant. So he had to go in and do the semen analysis, and he's like, you had like 2 sperm that would work, but that's after we spun it for a really long time. So now he's having to take all the medicine. Like we're talking shots and Clomid and some other medicine, and it's super expensive again. And it's like it's not working out the way I wanted it to. But so we're still going through that, and we'll have to.
Well, that's
hopefully one day we'll have another kid.
You have something to hold over the kids for the rest of their life.
How much
you
money
cost
you
10,
yes.
you cost 15. Jesus.
And then there's that fear that I'm gonna have to. I don't want 2 kids. Like I don't want 2 like twins. I want 2 kids and that's it. And honestly.
Wait, twins run in your family?
They don't, but I feel like because they were really surprised I didn't have twins because like I had 4 eggs that were fertilized and good when we had Roman, and so they're like the chances of you having multiple. And I feel like God knew I didn't need multiples at that time, because if I would have had twins, like I wouldn't have been able to go home when my aunt passed away. Like there was no way at 30. Yeah. And honestly, like I probably would have already had the kids, and so because they normally come early, right? Like twins just kind of come early, so I wouldn't have been able to go home for that. So I think that was God's way of saying you just needed 1 kid at this time, because I wouldn't have been able to go home, and then wouldn't have been good. But
we're gonna go ahead and wrap this episode here, and I want to say thank you for coming out and sharing that, and hopefully the next time you're on, you have twins in your.
No, don't wish that on me. I know, like I wouldn't.
Now watch, I'm gonna have twins.
Yeah, it's gonna, all you, and I can laugh.
But like always, like I end the episode every time is what is a life lesson that you could share with the audience? And I know it's hard putting everybody on the spot all the time doing this.
Life lesson.
What comes to your heart when I say that? What's the first words and the first thoughts? Even cliche, not cliche, what is it?
I think just always try maybe more than once to have a relationship with whoever you might not have that relationship with, or just make sure that you're okay with the relationship you have with the person, because you never know when they're going to be gone. Like my aunt, I didn't know she was going to die 3 days after I sent her some pictures. So just making sure that your relationships are in check and you're okay with where you are with that person is really important. Like, because you never know what tomorrow holds.
Well, with that, we're going to end the episode. And thank you for coming out and sharing your stories. And hopefully you guys enjoyed listening to it. And we'll see you guys next episode. That's the end of the episode. Thank you guys for listening. If you enjoyed it, please hit that like and subscribe button down below to get the latest updates. Until then, see you guys next time.